I want to give a few updates on the Orlando shooting. These are some new facts that have rolled in that changes the narrative somewhat substantially. Okay, so they've found out all of the backgrounds of the Orlando massacre victims, of the 49 who were killed. Over 90% of the victims were of Hispanic background, which we knew. It's also mostly a homosexual club, but there were straight people that had gone. That black lady who had described the event, she had said she went with her straight friend. So there were some straight people there, but mostly Hispanic and mostly homosexuals. Half of those Hispanic folks were of Puerto Rican descent. Pulse was hosting a Latin night. So they were not only Hispanic, but many of them were Puerto Ricans. So again, this is an attack on minorities. This is an attack on homosexuals. So a white American, right-wing white American could have easily have done something like this. I mean, how hard is it to pull a trigger? How hard is it to lose your mind? I just saw this one video where the white woman from Alabama who was living in Texas killed her two daughters. She killed her two daughters to punish her husband. Her daughter was about to get married. She's 22 years old, and she wanted to ground her. She wanted to punish her. And the father loved the daughters with all his heart, and for some reason she lost her mind. She's a Baptist. She's a conservative. She pulled out a pistol. She shot her two daughters and didn't shoot her husband, and then eventually the cops killed her. Check it out. Sheets. Some lady named Sheets. Sheats. And so, not only were half of them Puerto Rican, three Mexican citizens were killed, three Colombians and two Canadians were injured, and an off-duty United States Army Reserve captain at the club who was not in uniform was also killed. So there was a military member, an off-duty United States Reserve captain. So that's a little bit of update of who the people were. Most of them, 90%, over 90% were Hispanic. At least half of them were of Puerto Rican descent. Then you also had three Mexican citizens who were killed and an off-duty United States Army Reserve captain at the club who wasn't in uniform who was also killed. Another thing that the media got wrong about this was that it's not an AK-47. They keep on saying AK kind of weapon, AK-styled weapon, right? They were reporting flat out that it was an AK-47. So the media picks a hold up of something and then they just run with it. And I haven't heard any corrections. When I first heard the story, I had heard that Omar had saw two men kissing, and I thought that was the reason. It was just flat out homophobia. And even though the FBI seems to have doubts on it, the FBI, this is founded by, a really corrupt fucking guy who went around following MLK and told MLK to go kill himself in the COINTELPRO. So, I don't know. The FBI says that they discount the theory that Omar had been to the Pulse several times and that he had a Grindr account and these gay dating site apps and that he was gay himself. That sounds like more homophobia from people from the system. Just like Omar Mateen was homophobic and he was of the system. For 9 years. For 9 years, he was of the system. He was with G4S. So it wasn't an AK-47 that was used. It was a Sig Sauer MCX semi-automatic rifle and a 9mm Glock 17 semi-automatic pistol. So he had, these two weapons. And that's just, it wasn't just an AK. It was a Sig Sauer MCX semi-automatic rifle. People say, well, what's it matter? The truth fucking matters, okay? The truth fucking matters. I don't know why it wouldn't matter to you. In a 911 call shortly after the attack, I found this to be fascinating. Mateen had swore allegiance to the leader of ISIL, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. So he's saying he's a soldier of al-Baghdadi. And the CIA says it's bullshit. And so I believe Obama, I believe the CIA. Just because they, we want the truth. So what kind of person is this? Whereas Fox News is pushing for war. But that isn't what I thought was fascinating. He did tell the negotiator that Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was in America. He's in America right now. That's what Omar Mateen had said. He's like, oh, he's here now. He is here now. So I thought that was pretty, pretty crazy. Because of the bombing campaigns in Iraq and Syria, and he wanted America to stop. So stop bombing my country. He's also been mad about Afghanistan. So, these are Muslim nations, or nations where there are a lot of Muslims. I don't know if they're majority Muslim nations, but these are the reasons, quit killing us over there. That was the idea, right? Isn't that what Bush said? It's better to kill them over there so they're not over here. But it turns out by killing them over there, we're actually radicalizing some of the Americans here, some of the Arab Americans. And Omar Mateen was totally an American. He had a homophobic religious father, but doesn't a lot of folks have a homophobic religious father? A lot of Christians have homophobic religious fathers. Remember Kim Davis and her, I keep forgetting this movie, man. It's about the prison, Tim Robbins, Shawshank Redemption. Kim Davis comes out with the Shawshank Redemption, like, yes, I'm free at last. And people say, well, oh, it's different. Even Bill Maher was saying, oh, it's different. Christians don't, do the shit that Muslims do. They go to jail for their fucking beliefs. So, yeah, I guess Kim Davis didn't go around shooting people. She's got a job. She's got power. She has, 4 marriages. So she has lots of males who want to be with her in spite of her Dick Cheney face. But to pretend that homophobia doesn't exist, the 2004 amendment Kentucky had passed, so that was our referendum to hate gay folks. And Matt Bevin was, is against homosexuals, and Kim Davis. So this is a popular issue. Over half of America has been blatantly homophobic for, since its inception. Homosexuals, since Stonewall riots in the 60s or the 70s. So for 3 or 4 decades, homosexuals have been coming out and saying who they are. But before then, they never did. So it was a totally patriarchal, machismo type of culture. And then even after then, it wasn't legalized until 2015. So this country's been homophobic for decades. But I just thought it was interesting that he said al-Baghdadi is out here right now. He also said he had snipers up in the fucking, outside. He said he had several members who had bombs strapped on him. And then eventually he said he threatened to put some bomb jackets on some of the hostages. And eventually that's evidently Omar said something that pissed him off. And this is big news here because this changes the whole narrative. Nobody had got shot. Nobody was dead until the system, until the good guys, until the police, SWAT team, and maybe FBI. But the SWAT team, definitely, there's about 8 or 9 guys, maybe 11 guys in the SWAT team of Orlando. And we don't even know their names, right? Just like, okay. So at about 5:02 a.m., they decided to move in and take Omar out. They decided to go in. We're going to go in. They didn't go through a window. They didn't go through a door. They said, hell, we got these military weapons, these militarized weapons. So they took an armored vehicle and they crashed into the wall. So they crashed into the wall. They used flash grenades, right? These are good guys with the weapons, but they're also part of the system like Omar was. So how hard would it have been for Omar to have got hold of any of these weapons? So even with all these militarized weapons, they used explosives, they used an armored vehicle, they tried to blow the wall down. They didn't blow the wall down immediately, and then they kept on going in. And that's when Omar started killing people. That's when the SWAT team had killed people. So they were shooting people, the SWAT team was shooting people, and then Omar was shooting people. This has all happened at 5 a.m. The standoff started at 2 a.m. So he had hostages. There were people that went into the building. There were cops that went into the building and had saved a couple of folks. But nobody had got murdered. Okay, there were people that had got shot, but nobody had been murdered. Nobody was killed until the SWAT team moved in. So the SWAT team moves in about 5:07. Dispatchers heard an explosion as SWAT team members tried to knock down a bathroom wall to free 15 hostages. Did not work. 5:17 a.m. dispatchers heard bad guy down. So for 10 minutes, the SWAT team tried to do their break the wall down bullshit and tried to, take this guy out instead of going into the building and through the, straight to the door. So, that's what had happened. So that's big news that none of the people got killed until the authorities went in. Many times negotiations can last for 24 to 48 hours. But they wanted to go in right away. They wanted to go in immediately. And so that's what they did. So, there's a lot of issues, I think, with that. For 3 hours, it wasn't long enough negotiation. Nobody died until the authorities went in. And so, I had thought that Omar had killed people and then took hostages. And then, they went in after him. So he was already a murderer. But he didn't become a murderer until perhaps the SWAT team become murderers themselves. They killed people too. So the Orlando police has blood on their hands. They killed innocent bystanders. And then you had Omar, who killed people too. It's like, oh, you're not going to listen to me, so I'm going to start taking him out. So this is just a absolute mess for the police force, who, again, Omar Mateen was this close from becoming a police officer. This close. This fucking close. He passed the basic abilities test and in 2014. And he'd been a security guard for 9 years. So how, it doesn't seem like it's that far of a stretch to think that he would have actually became a police officer. The system protects themselves. The system protects themselves. So, see, 5:15 is when Mateen was shot and killed by the police. 5:17 is when they say bad guy down. So about 8 to 10 minutes when they try to break down the side of the wall, when the police threw flash grenades, when they took an armored vehicle to crash down the wall, that's when 49 people were murdered and, 53 were injured. So 49 people were killed when the SWAT team went in. No telling, that's 10 people. Let's give the SWAT team, they killed 10 folks, and then Omar Mateen killed the other 39. I mean, that's possible, but there's 15 hostages. So, there's still people out in the middle of the club who haven't run out the door yet. I'm not for sure. Some other information I want to share, just some of the scandals that G4S has been a part of. The 2002 is when G4S had bought Whacking Hut, right? And 2002, so G4S is this global British mercenary company. Their central location in London headquarters, but their USA region headquarters is in Jupiter, Florida. So they've had a deeply troubled history. They're a private security group. They protect courthouses. They protect country club, community clubs at PGA Village that Omar last worked at. He was also at the courthouse, and he was a prison guard, but not with G4S. Not that I know of. He was with the juvenile, so he was, in the juvenile prisons. And so the G4S has contracts with Homeland Security. They're protecting oil fields in Africa. They have control of the juvenile prisons in Florida, which has been a disgrace, considered a disgrace to Florida. A grand jury came out and said it was a disgrace to Florida. They also are in Palestine, perpetuating systemic abuse there too. Whacking Hut, they had a widespread sexual assault of inmates at a Texas detention center in 1999, which is the same, place where that Alabama-born lady, but she was in Texas at the time. Very pro-guns, and then said, fuck it, pulled out her pistol and shot the 2 kids. Shot her own daughters, like Susan Smith, in order to impress or to piss off or what the fuck ever her man. She sends him into, oblivion. Susan Smith is the one that drowned her kids, maybe 10, 20 years ago. But it was in Texas, right? So you got these sexual assault of inmates at a Texas detention center by Whacking Hut. Whacking Hut went on to win a contract to guard the U.S. Embassy at Kabul. So they got a $189 million contract. So congratulations, you're having sex with the prison inmates in Texas. So here's $189 million fucking dollars. And they got it for over 5 years. In 2009, the Project on Government Oversight sent a letter to then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton with photographic evidence that embassy guards had created a Lord of the Flies environment. Lord of the Flies, where a bunch of kids was on an island, then they just start killing each other, and then eventually a military, helicopter flies over, and they're like, what the hell are you kids doing? What do you mean, what are we doing? We're fighting each other like savages that, evidently the adults are too. They're having sexual assault. They're abusing, women in prisons. They're abusing the kids in prison. And they're part of the, immigration, border patrol, Homeland Security. And they protect 90% of the nuclear sites. Not only do they protect them, but they're designing them. They're engineering the buildings where the nuclear sites are, and they're doing something else. So they're designing them, and they're employing 90%, and I want to say the logistics or something, I don't know, but the engineering the buildings, and 90%, 90%. Don't let me get to clapping, boo. 90%. So, they created a Lord of the Flies environment with the U.S. Embassy at Kabul, and that's at Afghanistan. And they said that the guards and supervisors were peeing on people, eating potato chips out of butt cracks, vodka shots out of butt cracks, drunken brawls, threats and intimidation from the leaders participating in this activity. So, I don't know if I guess they're making them, I mean, it's like Guantanamo, or this is like, what is that one torture place in Iraq? You know, they were just having fun, right? Just like the Stanford prison experiments, just humiliating people just to have fun with them. Like, you know, fuck your life. Who gives a shit about your life? In 2007, G4S signed contracts with 5 Israeli prisons and interrogation centers, leading to accusations that it was complicit in torture and imprisonment of children. In 2010, 3 G4S security guards killed an Angolan national during a deportation flight from the UK by restraining him in an asphyxiating position. They choked him to death. So again, they're helping with immigrants, and now they're choking them to death. G4S is known as a security company that goes where the police and the military will not go. And the police and the military already do enough damage, but they're willing to do, you know, go above and beyond that and do as much damage as they can possibly muster up. So I just want to check Kabul real fast to see. Kabul. Afghanistan. Okay, yeah. So Kabul's in Afghanistan. There's a Lord of the Flies environment. So, you know, they're over there. You know, whenever the troops are fighting, it's like Blackwater. They have these private mercenary groups. So it's like, well, it wasn't us. It was the Blackwater folks. So G4S is just like Blackwater. In January, I want to say of this year, 5 G4S officers were arrested after the BBC exposed systemic abuse and neglect at G4S-run youth jails. So they're abusing prison children, British children in juvenile jails. They're abusing Florida juveniles in their jails. They're abusing Palestinians. They're abusing children all over the world. That's what G4S does. They're willing to go above and beyond. They'll go beyond what the police and what the military is willing to do. They'll torture your children for you. Just call G4S. They'll torture your kids. And then this other thing happened. Danny Fitzsimmons, in 2009, he was a former British paratrooper and employee of a G4S subsidiary. He killed 2 colleagues in Iraq, claiming to be the Antichrist and saying that he must satisfy his bloodlust. So this is psychotic. This guy is nuts. Danny Fitzsimmons, a former British paratrooper, employee of G4S subsidiary, claims to be the Antichrist and he must satisfy his bloodlust. So he killed 2 of his colleagues in Iraq. So these are the people that were having fight by the soldiers, right? Without the flag. They don't have the flag of their country behind them. They're mercenaries, paid private, you know, people. But then later on, they're saying that an official investigation concluded that his employer did not properly vet his psychological health. Well, that's interesting. Psychological help. We're talking about this shit again. It didn't stop the guy who killed Tamir Rice, Timothy Loman. He had a bad psychological evaluation. I think we should shut down G4S, but that's not the only thing that we need to do. It's a system that's corrupt. Omar Mateen had 5 background checks by the FBI, by G4S, by others. He had a license to carry a gun. He was one of the machine. No psychological evaluation nor background checks would have stopped Omar Mateen. Omar did have a homophobic religious father, as many Americans do, who couldn't listen to his son, as many Americans do, who couldn't tell his son that he loved him because he's a homophobic piece of shit. But his father still wanted to control him, and he still wanted his son's love. He wanted his son's abject obedience, and the way that the oppressed love their oppressors is to love them and do what they're told. but to oppress another person is to dehumanize them. The system protects themselves. So we're not talking about all that needs to be talked about. We need to stop homophobia everywhere. Stop calling everything gay. We need to shut down the G4S. And we need to shun and stop the thin blue line. The thin blue line means no matter what criminal activities the police, the military, or the security guards do, they're going to protect their own. So it doesn't matter if you're Timothy Loman, who shot Tamir Rice, who had failed a psychological evaluation, or Stephen Roach, who killed Timothy Thomas in Cincinnati in 2001, causing the riots, or Mackenzie Mattingly of the LMPD, who killed Michael Newby 2004. They both got jobs elsewhere in different police stations. In fact, Mackenzie Mattingly got paid off like $100,000 to quit. And then Tyler Brockman of Boone County Sheriff's Department, Kentucky. He didn't even get fired, and he killed Samantha Ramsey. So R.I.P. Newby, Thomas, Ramsey, and Rice. But this is example of the system protecting themselves. They all got jobs as police officers. They never even got fired for the murders they committed. They were not charged. They got no punishment whatsoever. So Omar was a part of the system. He was a part of the system, and that's why he was able to get a hold of a weapon. Even if there was a ban on assault rifles, eventually he seemed to be pretty determined that he was going to get his guns. So not just shut down G4S, but we need to stop homophobia, and we need to stop the thin blue line. Fuck that bullshit. If you're a police officer and you see another police officer do some criminal activity, hurt some guy, kick a mentally handicapped person in the face, murder somebody, rape, steal, say something. You see something, cops, say something. For once in your life, can you do that? Because if you guys are protecting each other, then you're not protecting and serving the public. You stay mum, you stay silent, you're perpetuating an unjust, oppressive system. Also, we need to stop homophobia. It's everywhere, it's rampant. If you say something is lame, is gay, that means it is embedded in you. That anything that's not cool is gay. Well, I've also heard people say, what are you gay? What are you, some sort of nigger, right? So it's like any type of, let's quit using slurs as synonyms for lame. Lame is pretty harsh, okay? Man, that's lame. Wow, that's super lame. That is, that's a pretty harsh word. So we don't have to call it gay. We don't have to use any other slur. It's just lame. Something is lame. Calling something gay doesn't change its lameness. It just turns you into a homophobe. So stop homophobia everywhere. Shun the thin blue line. Shut down the G4S.